Hey folks, this is Michael Knapp. I'm super excited to come to you. This is Thanksgiving Eve of 2020, and I believe today was the start of some of the greatest moments in political history that our country has ever seen. Now, here's what I'm experiencing. Most of us turn on the news and we see, it doesn't matter whether it's Fox or CNN or MSNBC or now Newsmax or whatever, and there's this real horrible amount of negative energy, in particular if you're a conservative, obviously if you're a conservative, negative amount of energy about what's happening in the elections. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, oh no, the gloom and doom, what's going to happen? I used to pastor a church, and I'm seeing friends that are giving up on this process. And honestly, guys, I believe what is happening right now is, Sidney Powell said it. She made a comment about all the information that's coming out, and she says it's biblical. Now, Sidney Powell she's an attorney in a very well-known and very successful attorney. She can't make a comment like biblical in reference to these elections if it's not serious. And I believe without a doubt that this information that we have coming out at us right now, September 25th, again, Thanksgiving Eve is just out of this world incredible. And I think most people aren't getting this information. You're not going to find it on Fox. You're sure not going to find it on Comedy News Network or any of these other stations for that matter. What you have to do is you have to dig a little deeper than what's on the surface. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now is we're going to dig deeper than what's on the surface so that you can have confidence moving forward of what's going to happen. Now, ultimately, there's a lot of things at play here and a lot of dominoes that are falling, some good, some bad. Most actually are good if you dig deep. So what we're going to do is I'm going to dig through, and this is going to be kind of a strange approach. I've got a couple, hiccups. I've got a couple computers going on, my screen here, my Facebook feed here, and we're going to do a live Facebook thing where you should be able to see the information that's on my screen here. And what I'm going to do is kind of go post by post and look at kind of some of the posts I'm making and where I'm getting the information and what this information is all about. Okay, so let's start here. None, and I'm going to say this really boldly, none of this voter fraud should matter. Now, this is kind of a bombshell probably to you right now. You're like, what do you mean, Michael? There's tons and tons. I mean, Sidney Powell said it's coming out of like a fire hydrant. But let me say this, it really shouldn't matter. And why do I say this? We have federal laws, state laws have laws about the election process. Now, there are mail-in votes allowed. There have been mail-in votes allowed in previous years for a long time because they're called absentee ballots. The idea is if you're overseas and you can't be here, you can send in an absentee ballot. And I can't remember the number that I heard today of how many actual absentee ballots there were, but numerous people over the years have made comments that mail-in voting is it's the number one way to open up fraud. But the idea is we have laws in place where states have come forward and passed laws, election laws, some of them 2-3 days before an election or a week or 2 weeks before the election. Folks, that alone, I could stop here and not say anything else in a video. That alone, if it gets to the federal court system and it goes to the Supreme Court justices, that alone should eliminate this election. Now, how they handle it from that point, I don't know. But ultimately, if any of these states were using the mail-in voting system the way they did, most of those states, in particular the swing states, passed these new rules and these new regulations just days before the election. That violates the law. As a result, by law, they can't count those votes. So we can take comfort in knowing if our judicial system is running correctly, and in particular at the federal level, that there should be some security in that alone. So let's just start there, okay? So rest assured, already that's a violation of law. So now let's go down to, let me first of all, let me look at this. Let me define the Supreme Court justice a little bit. There is a quote, a four-word quote over the Supreme Court building, and it says equal justice under law. Equal justice under law. These words express the ultimate responsibility of the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court is the highest tribunal in the nation for all cases and controversies arising under the Constitution of the laws of the United States. I'm reading this because this is a good definition. As the final arbitrator of the law. So they're the final arbitrator. Don't worry about what the states are saying right now. Right now, ultimately, the final arbitrator is the Supreme Court. The final arbitrator of the law, the court is charged with ensuring the American people the promise of equal justice under law, and thereby also functions as the guardian and interpreter of the Constitution. So right now you're hearing all these stories about these judges and all these places that are certifying election results. Who cares? They're not Supreme Court. They can't make that decision. Okay, so they can say it, but it doesn't really mean anything. And honestly, I think it needs to happen, and Trump understands this. Those authentications have to happen for it to move to the next level anyway. So we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. So what does all this mean? It means that it's the Supreme Court's justice to say this, whether it's the voter fraud or the fact that they've already violated the law to begin with, this is a law and it's been violated. As a result, there are consequences, okay? Legally, millions of ballots should have not been allowed. And actually, in most cases of fraud, when you look at the fraud, you're going to find, and I'm going to use this word one time. Pay attention to this. I'm going to use the word Dominion systems one time. And the reason why is Facebook, YouTube will delete this video if I use that word. So we're going to call it de-voting systems, maybe devil's voting systems for that matter. So most of the cases of fraud are either with the de-voting system or the mail-in ballots. One of the two. The regular system actually worked pretty well, minus some dumps from the D system. But anyway, we'll dig into this as we go along. My point is, again, that the Supreme Court does their job. These fraudulent votes will be pitched and Trump will win by a landslide. And we'll talk about this as we go along. Now, before we go any further, let's go back before 2016. Before 2016, Trump knew there were deep state problems. Okay, he knew that the deep state was horribly corrupt. And he made several comments before he came into office and as he was running for office that he was going to do something about these deep state issues when he ran for office. So he gets in office and wins by a narrow margin. Now, I'm going to propose to you, and we've already found out that he actually didn't win by a narrow margin. It was likely that he won by a massive landslide, but because there was voter fraud there, it was hard for him to expose because he won, and had he not won, he couldn't have exposed it. So, well, fast forward a little bit. So he gets elected, fast forward to 2018. Trump, this guy's brilliant. He signs an executive order which forbids foreign interference in elections. Okay, this is mind-blowing. And the reason I say that, he did one other thing. So that the first thing he signed an executive order establishing that there can be no foreign interference whatsoever. That's bold, okay? We're going to see how that plays out in a second. On top of that, he established the CISA, which is the Cyberspace or Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. I always have to look at my notes when I say that. So what is this cyberspace system? Well, everything I'm doing right now, I'm looking at this computer. This computer, I actually have a sticker over my camera, and this one I took off just a second ago because I was going to use it. But the idea is everything I'm doing, it can be discovered through cyberspace, okay? Theoretically, someone from Turkey or India or Pakistan or Iraq, anywhere can, if they're good, they can log into a lot of different computers through cyberspace. And that's how like identity theft happens and all these kind of things. They're studying our stuff. Now, a lot of people don't believe that we're being spied on. let me share a story with you that's pretty profound. A friend of mine, really great guy, told me he just bought an iPhone. And this is a powerful story. I want you to listen to this. Just bought an iPhone. It was brand spanking new and it hadn't even come out of the box. So what he decided to do is he decided to charge it, and he wanted to see if we're being spied on, if this actually is happening. So what he did is he took the phone and he charged it, but he did not turn it on. And he told his wife, this is really cool. He told his wife, I'm not going to touch this phone. Even though it's a new phone, I'm not going to touch it for 4 or 5 days. We're going to leave it on the bar in the kitchen. And he hates cats. Okay. He never talks about cats, not a topic of the discussion in his home. So he leaves this thing on his desk or on his bar. And he says, he tells his wife, he says, every time we're around the bar, let's talk about cats. Okay. And it's hard for him probably to talk about cats because he hates cats. So the idea is 4 days later, the phone, pay attention to this. The phone is off, completely off. It's charged, but it's off. He turns on the phone and for the next 3 weeks has nothing but cat ads, cat food, cat this, cat that, catnip, whatever. Don't tell me we're not being spied upon. This is a dead phone. A phone turned off with a battery charged, but turned off. When he turned it on, there was nothing but cat advertisements. Come on, folks. If we're not being spied on, we're blind. Okay. Most people think it's a hoax. It's not. So now I have a friend, here's another story. I have a friend that's in the military, and when he talks privately about something significant, he actually takes his phone. He's been in the military for about 20 years. He takes his phone, puts it on the other side of the house, puts a pillow on it or something, and begins having the conversation. He won't even talk about anything, even private matters, with a phone anywhere in the room. So, and here I say this, my phone's here, and I got 2 computers on and all that kind of stuff. So now, this is ultimately why I also believe that the government that Trump established, the Space Force, has similar purposes, that ultimately for the same reason. So already we see that Trump, he's ahead of the game. Man, when you study Trump, he is always a step ahead. This is awesome. So he knows the system. The election system is rigged with the D-voting systems. Again, I'm calling it D-voting systems because I don't want to use that word because I'm going to get blocked by YouTube and whatever. So that's number one. He knows that. Second thing is he signs an executive order prohibiting foreign interference. So here's what's kind of cool. Let's just go on. So then he established a cyberspace infrastructure security agency and Space Force. So we already know he's ahead of the game. Now, what happens in the next couple years of his presidency is profound, okay? And this is absolute brilliance. Before I actually go into some of this, think about all the things that have happened, everything from Epstein to Weiner's computer to the Hillary scandal to Facebook, Twitter, and all these guys blocking things. I mean, it's really phenomenal, all that's happening. And someone needs to expose all this kind of stuff, right? So all this is going on. And then, man, this is bombshell stuff here, folks. This is bombshell. And I'm going to share this because it is really phenomenal. And it is probably one of the most significant historical events. And the fact that it happened 1 month, actually, what is it? Not 1 month, a few months or 2 months or so before the election is astounding. Okay. And I'm going to say this, and you're going to think I'm a jerk for saying what I'm about to say. And I can't help it, but it is profound for what's happening. And don't get me wrong. I have sympathy. I have empathy, and I feel bad for what happened, but at the same time, this is profound. There's a date. I'm going to give you a date of something significant that went down in history. On September 18th of 2020, anybody remember what happened that day? I don't think we're going to realize how profound this was historically. And don't trash me for saying this. It's the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Why is this so significant? Okay. Before this time, the Supreme Court was nine judges, and it was really kind of on a teeter-tottering situation because you had 5 more conservative judges and 4 a little bit more liberal. Well, there was one of the 5 conservative that tended to kind of be persuaded one way or another. So it was kind of a teeter-tottery type deal. Well, what happened is when Ruth died, that gave the Republicans an opportunity to make it a 6-3 type deal. Okay, this is profound. You can imagine when this is happening. Do you remember what was happening before? So as all this was happening, okay, right as all this was happening, the Democrats are trying to push in, and all the states are trying to push in this mail-in voting, knowing it's against the law, okay? They know it's against the law, and they're pushing in this mail-in voting, okay? And then all of a sudden, Ruth Ginsburg dies, and they're like, what do we do? And they also know, keep in mind, they know they're getting ready to commit voter fraud, okay? They know it. It's been in the works for years. So they're panicky, and they're causing a commotion over everything from mail-in ballots to selecting a Supreme. Oh, do it after the election. Are you kidding? They knew what was going on. It wasn't just, after the elections, they're going to make some decisions. No, they knew that there was a chance of them getting busted, and now they're in trouble because ultimately they know if there's a chance they get caught, it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and they have a 50-50 chance of winning at the Supreme Court, but that is now over. That's why the fight was so hard when they chose Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, they know she's going to cause a mess of this stuff. So let's go on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of my posts, and what I'm going to do is explain why I made these posts. So what I've been doing over the last month is posting, or since election, is posting these articles or these little snippets, and it's usually only sometimes 20 words or 10 words, and people may be confused about what's going on. So my first post was about what I've talked about earlier, is that right now we have six states: Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. They're the swing states in question right now. Who cares? Because they violated the law already. We already talked about this. So ultimately, that would mean, in my opinion, if I'm a Supreme Court justice, that the mail-in ballot's going to have to be rejected. Now, I don't know how they're going to handle that, but ultimately, if that violated the law, they have to throw that out. Well, if they count that, then they're going to have to go back and look at the D system and all that other kind of stuff. But let's just start there. So my next post is, this is so good. Okay, this is good as it gets. And this is one of those bombshell things too. Linwood is an American attorney based in Atlanta, Georgia. He's best known for representing Richard Jewell, the security guard falsely accused in Centennial Olympic Park bombing in Atlanta in 1996. Okay, Linwood. This guy is, man. He is becoming my one of my superheroes. Here's what's cool. This guy is so good. He also served as co-counsel, so two attorneys for the Kyle Rittenhouse in the defense of false charges of murder arising out of the riots in Kenosha. And from what I gather, the press, it's interesting. He's gotten very little coverage, but it appears he's free right now. And this is Linwood. This guy is the bomb. If you get a chance, go to his website. It's linwoodlaw.com. This guy has a resume that is beyond amazing. So when a guy like Linwood, let me say this. When a girl like Sidney Powell and a guy like Linwood comes out and makes some really bold statements, you got to listen to them. Because if they make bold statements, their career is based on those statements, and they can't back off those statements after they've made them because they have to stand behind those. So let's listen to what he says. He says, as we approach Thanksgiving 2020, 80 plus million patriots are waiting to give thanks for the indictments. Okay, this is amazing. He points to 6 things: Epstein, Durham Russiagate, Wiener's laptop, Hunter's laptop, Hillarygate, communist election theft, and he says it's going to reveal every lie. Now, I'm going to add that this election. So here's what he's saying. Let me go back here for a second. Let me explain what he's saying. He's saying, folks, this election is so big that it's not just about the election. It's about this stuff. It's about, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And right now we already know that the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, all these organizations have leadership or people in leadership that have been totally corrupt. And all that's going to be exposed in this process as well. So it's more, and I'm going to say this election is of global proportions. There's things happening globally that are going to be affected by this election. We can talk about that at some another point. So he's going to uncover Epstein Island, Hunter's laptop, Hillary and Benghazi. Here's what's cool. Here's what I love about this. He's going to expose what's going on with CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, Google, Twitter, Facebook. Here's what I believe this election is going to expose. It's going to bring light. You know how when you're walking through a cobweb at night, you can't see it, right? Well, when the light shines on it, it glows. And I think what we're going to see in this election is a light shining on this cobweb of crap that we've had to deal with for the last 10, 12, 20, maybe 20 years. It's gotten worse and worse and worse. This deep state crap. And some people are calling it conspiracy theory. Folks, when you study this, if you put any time and energy into understanding this deep web, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see who's in what party and that there's a darker agenda going on. So now, here's a question I'm going to throw at you. Why did Trump not expose this all before the election? I mean, why would he let the elections take place? And here's my take on this. I believe that the elections if he didn't let it take place, he couldn't expose most of the deep state fraud. This stuff is going to bring light to a lot of darkness. And it's going to be that big domino that knocks all the other dominoes down. I actually don't even believe it's going to be a domino thing. I think you got one big domino with election fraud, and it's going to drop on all the others, and they're just going to fall. It's not going to be like, it's all going to collapse at once. This is, I call it the coupe de ville of this entire game that the Democrats have been playing. This is the big deal. Okay. So I'm excited. The voter fraud is almost going to connect all the pieces. So it's actually going to confirm all the pieces of what I should say of what we already know. Okay. So now my next post that I posted on here is simply scriptural. I used a passage in Proverbs. I believe it's 11:1. It says, dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord. And I think it goes on to say, but honest scales are a delight or something like that. I can't remember the passage. And this is what we're dealing with. Dishonest scales. And we're going to talk about this dishonesty that we're experiencing in the States. We're going to dig into this as we go along. I'm on page 5 of 15, guys. There's some really, really, really good stuff coming, so stick with me. So I made a comment. Actually, this is cool. The next comment I made on Facebook was, don't give up. The party's just started. And guys, this is where we are. This is why I think it's cool. It's Thanksgiving. The party is just getting started. And meanwhile, people are like, oh, Trump's going to lose. Man, the party's just getting started, folks. Great example today. Trump and Giuliani, actually it's mostly Giuliani, are in Pennsylvania and in Supreme Court today. And if you haven't watched that hearing, folks, it's mind-blowing, all the fraud. It is absolutely, it's beyond what I don't want to say it's beyond what I thought. I was pretty convinced of it anyway. So he's fighting in Pennsylvania right now. Sidney Powell, who we'll discuss later, she's in Georgia dropping some bombshells. And I think Linwood is also, if I'm correct, also in Georgia right now. So listen to what she tweeted. This is Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell says she has witnesses that are going to testify that each Democratic candidate in Arizona, pay attention to this, got 35,000 Head Start votes on election night. 35,000 on election night, Head Start votes. She goes on to say that Trump will definitely win. That's a bold statement from someone like her. At one point, she said, I'm going to say this again, the information came in like a fire hose. And my favorite comment again of all was that she said this was going to be biblical, massive, massive statement. Okay. Now I could go on and on about what's happening in Wisconsin, Michigan. All you need to know that bombs were dropped in each one of these states. Okay. There are recounts, there's audits, there's legal cases been filed, et cetera, et cetera. Now, my next post says this. I say, why am I posting so much political information? And it's because most people aren't getting it from the lamestream media. And what they're getting is fabrication of the truth. And let me explain this. Let me give you an example. I'm going to pull up a letter and it's titled Emily Murphy Threatened. Emily Murphy, you may not know that name. A lot of people don't. She is the administrator of the USGSA. She's ultimately in charge of the presidential transition team. Well, if you've paid any attention to CNN or any of these others, and I haven't, but I've heard about it, she's been getting a lot of hell in her transition team because they are not doing what they're supposed to do in regards to transitioning Biden from this position of a brainless a socialist to the president of the United States. So she's been getting a lot of hell all over the place. Okay. So what has been happening is the media is promoting this is that Trump is holding her back, that somehow he's telling her not to start this transition process. Okay. Because as if when they do that, it's saying that somehow Trump is conceding or something like that. And that's not what's happening. Okay. Let's read what she actually says in the letter. Now, what the media is going to tell you, pay attention to this. They're going to make the slant say, well, because she started the process, that means that Trump has already kind of agreed to the transition process and then he's already conceding. That is not what's happening. And that's not what she said in the letter. And any media source that claims otherwise should be exposed for this. Okay, let's read what she says. She starts by saying, in the event of a presidential transition, that's if there is a transition. Pay attention to this next part. She says, please know that I came to the decision independently, based on the law and available facts. I was never directly or indirectly pressured by an executive branch official, meaning the president or Republicans or leadership in those areas. They weren't pushing her to do this, obviously, one way or another. They kind of just, is what she's saying, including those who work at the White House or the GSA, with regards to the substance or timing of my decision. Now, here's the bombshell again. I hate to use that word all the time. I need to come up with a better one. She said, listen to this. I did, however, receive threats online, by phone, by mail, directed at my safety, my family, my staff, and even my pets. I cannot believe we've come to the point where we're going to threaten someone's pets. This is ridiculous. In an effort to coerce me into making the decision prematurely, the news media left out that part. Isn't that amazing? Of course they did. Go online and read the rest of the letter. Media is leaving out 95% of what she said. You can type her name in. Again, her name is, what is it again? Emily Murphy. Okay. USGSA presidential transition. Just Google any of that and you can find the letter yourself. Okay, let's move on. My next post is about data dumping. Ultimately, throughout the night, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail and hopefully put some images up, there were unique patterns of data dumping through the night that were very unique, that are actually not calculable, like statistical anomalies. And we're going to get back to that in a second, but let's go on. There's an article written in it, and it's, I don't know if it's Epoch Times in Pennsylvania, and Phil Kleins, who's an attorney as well as former state legislator, are reporting what they found in Wisconsin. We're going to go over a few just things that I put on my Facebook, and we're going to dig into some more election fraud. But this is what they said that's happening in Wisconsin. They wrote, and it's kind of a weird way they wrote it, and I was going to pull this up on my phone to read it correctly. It says, we found in Wisconsin that more than 100,000 Republican ballots were not counted, and more than 10,000 GOP voters who had their ballots requested, they were filled in by another person. Okay. So they requested these ballots, but somehow they were filled in by someone else. And around 100,000 illegal ballots were counted anyway. And this is already what they exposed. There's way more than that. This doesn't include some of the data dumping I'm going to show you in just a second. That you guys stay tuned for the end of this. There's so much stuff that's mind-blowing. It's really cool. There's even more exciting stuff in Georgia I'm going to tell you about in just a second. But we're going to get back to that. But I'm going to share another bombshell story right now. We're going to call this a commercial break, and because this is so big and so profound that at first, when I even read it, I kind of almost fell out of my seat. Trump recognized all special forces so that they are now under one chain of command. I'm going to say that again. Trump reorganized all special forces so that they are now under one chain of command. Now, why is this so huge? Who are the special forces? For those, most everybody should know what the special forces are. They're like the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets and those kind of people. Folks, these guys are the best of the best. What they're trained to deal with is these kind of hostile takeover type situations, communist activity. They go into enemy territory and they spy out the land. They look for, they're basically, they're ultimately the guys that go in before the military goes in to spy on or determine what type of communist activity, legal activity, whatever, so that they can go in and hopefully destroy that activity before it starts. Let me give you an example. We know darn well, folks, that if Trump wins, that there is going to be riots like crazy. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to say this, Black Lives Matter is a communist organization. I'm sorry, it's a communist, Marxist, socialist organization. But the idea is these people are going to rebel. And we saw it already with for months, torn down statues, burning buildings, rioting in the streets, you name it. Well, take that times 10, 100, 1,000, whatever. Well, the special forces, those are the kind of people that can go in and study this kind of behavior and stop it before it starts. Okay? These are the kind of people that can say, okay, you think you're going to organize this big rally and go in and trash the city or burn down this city? Oh, no. We're going to bring in special forces and we're going to deal with it. We're going to spy it out first and then we're going to deal with it second after it explodes. Now this, guys, this is so good. This shows you the brilliance of Trump. Now, when people first see this, it kind of sounds like a dictator type role. It's like, okay, so what he does, instead of going through these systematic chain of commands, he puts it under one person. And now he can go to this one person and that one person call the shots and make it happen. And that's what's going to happen. Now, why would he do that? The only reason he would do that, folks, is because he knows he's going to win. Or he knows there's a really darn good chance that he's going to win because he knows what's coming if he does win. Guys, this is good stuff. This is Trump getting the battleground prepared so that we don't have riots in the streets and we don't have buildings burning down and we don't have people doing crazy crap that we already saw they did. Now, this sounds cool. I'm going to say this because this is mind-blowing cool. So, let me explain the magnitude of this. When all these riots and stuff were happening and there was this big movement with not burning statues, but tearing down statues, tearing them apart, whatever, Trump signed an executive order that if you took down a federal, and I believe it was a federal statue, that you were going to get, I want to say 9 to 10 years in prison. I got to go back and look at how many years it was and whatever. Well, there was this, and I can't remember, it was like a 20,000 man march or a 1,000,000 man march, or the idea was Antifa or Black Lives Matter, or one of the organizations, were going to come in and they were going to wipe out all these federal statues and really raise all kinds of hell. Well, when that happened, when Trump signed the executive order, okay, bring it on, because you're going to get 10 years or 9 years or 10 years in prison. Boom. I think it was one person came and messed up a statue and ended up behind bars. This is so cool. So the idea is that with this one system now that he can call down a chain of command and not go through all this stuff's going to end. If he can stop the statue stuff, he can. I believe with special forces, they're going to be able to prevent a lot of this stuff from happening. Okay, now let's go on. Now, Sidney Powell. Let's dig into Sidney Powell for a second. So Sidney Powell, most people, Fox and all the other main stream media stations were destroying. So she came on and she said all this stuff about biblical proportions and that the information was coming in like a fire hose, and made some really bold statements on, I believe it was Fox. Well, obviously the media had a crap fit because they know they're going to be exposed. And she even made that comment that some of the media stations are going to be exposed. So they're freaking out. They don't know what to do. So what do? Think about it. They say they make these false claims that she was fired from the Trump legal team. Folks, that is an absolute lie. Blatant lie. Sidney Powell is a military tribunal attorney. She can't represent Trump in that capacity. So what she's doing is she's representing us. She's representing the law. She's getting behind the law and saying, hey, this can't be done because of XYZ and all these kind of things. So the media, again, is just blasting her for these comments. So pay attention to that, guys. Look beyond what's happening, what you're hearing. If the media says something, go to the other side of it to find out what's really going on, because what you're going to find is there's the opposite side of the story that you need to learn. Okay, next point. Let's talk about Eric Coomer. Who is Eric Coomer? Anytime you see the D voting systems, okay, or anything about Smartmatic or voter fraud, not just in the U.S., but in other countries, you will almost always, and you can Google this, almost always see Eric Coomer, his name attached to the fraud or the criminal activity. Now, Eric Coomer is a director of product strategy and security of D voting systems, okay? Let me give you a little bit of his resume here. He entered the elections industry in 2005 as chief software architect at Sequoia Voting Systems. He joined D Voting Systems in 2010 as vice president of U.S. engineering overseeing development, and later named director of product strategy and security to drive the creation of next generation products while focused on the changing landscape of cybersecurity threats and responses. Eric was a brilliant guy. I'm going to give him credit for that. Graduated from University of California, Berkeley with a PhD in nuclear physics. This guy is no dummy, okay? This guy supposedly has been involved in writing the codes or whatever you want to call them to be able to manipulate voting. As we know, in Venezuela and other places, this software or this voting system was used to manipulate votes on purpose, okay? He was behind all that. Anytime you see questions about the integrity of the election, his name was always, he's actually physically there at those times. So with all this said, I have a Facebook video showing how he's actually instructing folks on how to alter votes. Okay, there's a video that he did, a training video, showing that the D-voting system actually alters votes. Okay, and how to do it. Now, the video is a little misleading. It's presented as if it really is showing you that the system is designed to be able to switch votes. And basically what he's doing is he's training people on, okay, let's say if there's a vote mistake, you can go in and switch it. But the idea is it can be switched, okay? It's that you can go in and not just switch 10 votes or 20 votes or 100 votes or 1,000 votes, but tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of votes immediately. And he kind of does a little training on it. It's pretty cool. Go to my Facebook page and see that. My next post down, and I'm gonna take a comedy break here. Some of this stuff is just unbelievable. But I've got to read from what is it? I always forget how to pronounce her name. Ilhan Omar. She is an American politician serving as a U.S. representative of Minnesota in the 5th Congressional District. And this is just a moment of humor, folks. Doesn't have much to do with elections, but I want to share this because it kind of ties in because of how easily mainstream media can brainwash people with simple, ignorant statements. She makes this statement, okay? And this is just, I can't believe in 2020, and a politician as stupid as this, and I'm going to call her that. This is absolutely asinine what she says. She said a single F-35, talking about a military jet, cost $100 million. She's bothered by this. Obviously, she doesn't want the military because she's Muslim and she wants... We'll stop there on that comment. But anyway, here's what she says. So she says it costs $100 million. For that kind of money, we could feed 40 million children. Okay, folks, that hits the media. That goes out across the world, and all these people go, oh, oh, I can't believe one jet and we could feed 40 million people, and everybody starts crying and throwing a fit, and Alexander Cortez, and they start making all these dramatic comments. Shame on the U.S. military for spending so much money on a jet when 40 million children. Think about how this draws people in, okay? It's so strategic and it's so stupid at the same time. Folks, it's $100 million, 40 million kids. Do the math. If 40 million kids could get fed on $100 million, that means they get one meal at less than a McDonald's Happy Meal for $2.50. $2.50, 40 million kids. After that, they got nothing. Folks, if we don't have a military, we ain't feeding kids in the first place. God, people like that are stupid. I hate to say that. I do, but come on. Making comments that... Anyway, let's go on. That was a comedy break. I probably didn't present that very comically, but... So here's the deal. She makes comments like that, and liberals are like, ugh, and their brain goes dead. They don't think about the money. It's $2.50 a person. You can't feed 40 million kids for $2.50 except maybe one meal of rice. Gee, many Christmas. What a bunch of brain tards. Okay, let's move on. That was our little comedy break. So now we're going to go from comedy to some serious shocking stuff, and we're going to show how all this ties together. The reason I bring that comment up, and I use it as kind of a comedy break, but this is the kind of stuff that the media sells to our people, and they believe this, and they're going to believe that there's no voter fraud and all this other kind of stuff because the crap that they get little snidbits, and it's not enough to make a coherent intellectual decision, so they jump to these stupid conclusions. So stupid that they chose to elect a guy who's been in office for 47 years and accomplished nothing and obviously has senility issues, okay? So come on, people, wake up. This is crazy that we live in a world like this. Wow. Let me add this, and I wasn't going to go crazy with this. Why do you think Biden wants to pay off student debt? More brainwashing, people. This is crazy. Let's go on. Sorry. So this is where it's getting real. I'm going to tie this in for a second. So we went from the comedy thing to COVID, okay? I did a video, and I want you guys, if you get a chance to go, and I'll attach this underneath on this Facebook post. I did a video about the COVID drama and all the numbers associated with COVID. And COVID, it just doesn't match up, folks. I also found out that it appears that the devoting system group is also tied in with the calculation of COVID numbers. And I'm not sure if that's even true or not, but it would make sense. Here's the deal. No one watching this video or no one on the planet is going to convince me that COVID was not part of this big, grand scheme in the first place. Think about it. 9-10 months before an election, all of a sudden we have this virus. And here, I'm going to say this very clearly. We can call it a China virus. And yes, it originated from China, but I think it's part of a one world global system stuff. And you can call it conspiracy theory. You can call it all you want. But let me pay attention to this. Here's what I believe. China already has a vaccine. They already have it. They've probably had it from the beginning. They introduced this virus. How many executives or big China people have died from coronavirus? I haven't personally heard of any. Now, maybe there are some, and maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, which I don't believe I am. But the idea is, guys, I believe they knew it. Think about how Hunter was and all these other people are tied in with China. It all plays. You get 9 months before an election, and then all of a sudden, this one's crazy, and I'll talk about this later. Then all of a sudden, pharmaceutical companies 4 days or 5 days after an election have the cure. Okay, not a day before the election, not 2 days before election, not a week before the election, but 4 days after the election. Oh, come on, people. Who's in bed with who? This is ridiculous. So where am I going with this? I'll put all this together in a second. But so let me go back to this. Right after an election, I mean, come on. This is mind-blowing. So let me give you the reality of this. So you got all these pharmaceutical companies and Biden going, people are going to die, people are going to die, people are going to die, 260,000 Americans are going to die. And if you look at the numbers, guys, healthy people aren't dying. It's just not happening. But the idea is, all these people are going to die, all these people are going to die. I'm Joe Biden and I'm Kamala Harris and I believe in killing 770,000 babies a year, but somehow I care about coronavirus. This is crazy, folks. So the idea is, all of a sudden, you now have a vaccine after the election. So what does that tell you? It tells you the pharmaceutical companies don't give a damn about your health. This is all about money and politics. If they cared about your health, they would have introduced this vaccine long before that. They had it. They didn't just introduce a vaccine, all of them all at once, a week or two after. Are we foolish, folks? Are we buying this apple? That's another thing. Notice Apple has a bite bitten out of it. What's that the story of? Study your Bible, folks. I love this stuff. Politics are one of my favorite things. Politics and the Bible. So let's go on to Linwood. Let's go back to Linwood and let's go to Georgia. Now, this is mind blowing. So Georgia had a plumbing leak, and because of the plumbing leak, they put a 4-day delay on the election process. How convenient. How amazing is that? A swing state, one of the most important swing states in this election, has a plumbing leak. And guess what happens in the plumbing leak? It caused a 4-day delay. Guys, I've renovated 9 homes. I can't remember how many homes I've had all kinds of plumbing leaks. I can drive down Highway 98 in Destin, Florida, and know that a plumbing leak on Highway 98 with that road traffic that takes years to fix, they can fix it in an hour. This isn't 4 days worth of complications. It just doesn't work like that. So Linwood comes in. I love this. It's almost like Superman with his cape, and it's going to be awesome. So what does he do? And I don't know what the law says or how he did it, but basically now Georgia has to prove that the leak happened and has to have video footage of all this information to prove that it caused a 4-day delay in the election process or the counting process. There is no way Georgia's going to be able to prove this. I don't care how big of a leak this is. There is no way Georgia is going to be able to prove that a leak cost them a 4-day delay. Why did they need a 4-day delay? Because they needed to dump more fraudulent ballots. Come on, folks. This is awesome. Okay. Next post. This is my favorite. Kamala Harris. Let's talk about old Kamala. Don't you love her? Baby killing liberal socialist. So pay attention to this. She hasn't left her position. She hasn't. She's not left it. When Barack Hussein Obama was elected president of the United States, he left his position 11 days after he was elected. 11 days. Kamala Harris hasn't done anything to leave that position. She's not abandoned that position at this point. Why? She doesn't want to take the risk. If she abandons the position and resigns her position, she's no longer able to fulfill that role. Well, she knows darn well that there's corruption going on and that there's a very high likelihood that this is going to get thrown out and she is going to end up losing her position. So she ain't giving it up. She's no dummy. This speaks volumes, guys. This is amazing. Now, here's another big article. Feinstein, who has served as the Democrat on the Judicial Committee for 4 years. She served on the Democrat Committee for 4 years. She steps down from her leadership role after this infamous hug with Lindsey Graham. Now, here's what the media is going to tell you. This hug had something to do with Lindsey Graham and how he handled the Supreme Court justice. So basically, Feinstein's like, oh, Lindsey Graham, you did a good job. And there was a hug. Okay. Now, he crushed it. He did a great job. He obviously deserved recognition because it was a beautiful transition from Ruth Bader Ginsburg to Amy Coney Barrett in the whole process of how he led that committee. It was beautiful. It really was. And he deserved recognition. Well, here's how the Democrats see this. They see this hug as the devil hugging Jesus. Okay. This was a no-no. She even said this. Feinstein said this. It was one of the best set of hearings that I have ever participated in. Now that, if you're a Democrat, that's a bomb. That's literally throwing a bomb in your party, saying it's almost like the devil's angels are all like, But the devil's demons are like, hey man, Jesus did a great thing today. I mean, that's just foolish. Well, Democrats demanded that she step down. Now, I personally have two opinions on this. First, this shows the complete lack of ability for Democrats to have a cordial relationship with Republicans. This just shows our division, and that Democrats refused. I mean, I think it was a nice gesture, if that's what it was all about, of saying, hey, good job. Well, what is wrong with that? Have you ever lost something and patted the guy on the back and said, man, you did a good job? Why is it Democrats can't do that? And the reality is a lot of Republicans can't either. So here's what I believe is going on. I believe there's something deeper with Feinstein stepping down. Now, I'm not going to say it happened, but supposedly Feinstein's husband, Richard Bloom, he's the chairman and president of Bloom Capital, an equity investment management firm. Now, word on the streets says that he has some money in devoting systems, okay? I got my personal beliefs, but mine is that she stepped down because she's involved in this mess. Almost guaranteed. Notice also Hillary Clinton's been pretty silent. My bet she's involved too. Actually, I can't remember the story, but someone from devoting systems or Smartmatic donated to the Clinton Foundation. So anyway, I can't remember the story behind that. I don't have it in here. So this next position, this post is unique because it's not directly political, but in the same way it kind of is. Let me read this. State-sponsored hackers from China, Russia, Iran, North Korea are engaged in concerted attempts to steal coronavirus vaccine secrets. Now, the idea is that there's some cyberspace information out there that coronavirus secrets have been discovered. And that these groups are going to steal the whatever they got to do to create a coronavirus vaccine. So the question is, why is that a big deal? Why does that have anything to do with political? Democrats are jumping all over this. They're like, oh my gosh, cyberspace security experts are saying that China and all these people have stolen the secrets to the vaccine. First of all, China has the vaccine. Don't ever convince me that they don't. They do, trust me. Second, why would the Democrats cry about this? Aren't they also crying about the fact that cyberspace experts haven't found any evidence of voter fraud and for us to stay away from that conspiracy theory? So they want to believe one thing, but they don't want to believe the other. Unreal. Are you kidding me? So let's move on. Now let's talk about ballots. One of the mistakes that Georgia made was, and others have done, is shredding of some. So when you do a mail-in ballot, what you're supposed to do is for 2 years, you're supposed to keep the ballot and the envelope together so that they verify each other. Because from what I gather, there's a signature on the mail-in ballot or the envelope. So they're supposed to stay together to validate the mail-in ballot. Well, what happened is in Georgia and other places, they shredded the envelopes. Guys, folks, either way, this throws. Ultimately, in my opinion, the law that I read says that this is a complete violation of the law and has to be discarded, that those votes can't count. This is an absolute no-no. Ballots and envelopes are legally supposed to be together for 2 years so they can match signatures. There's one other way to verify it, and it's to go back to the court systems, and that's going to take forever to do. So that's a major, fatal flaw, in my opinion, for Georgia, and should constitute the pitching of hundreds of thousands of votes. By the way, most of these votes, these fraudulent votes like this, and all this stuff is happening after dark, obviously. And it appears that all of them, or most of them, I don't know what the statistic is right now. I'm anxious to see that come out as they're for Biden, and I'm going to give you some of those statistics later. And it is phenomenal. I mean, this is unbelievable. Now let's keep going. In Democratic cities where Biden crushed it, they're more. Pay attention to this. This is mind-blowing, and you can find this on my Facebook and some information to back it up. In Democratic cities where Biden crushed it, there are more people who voted than there are citizens living in those areas, including men, women, and children. So there's more people who voted than there are men, women, and children. And it's, listen to this, another post says of people, it says 125 to 350%. So the people that are registered to vote, so let's say that 100% of the people show up, that would be every person that's registered to vote, which does not happen. It never happens. I don't know what the real numbers are. They're saying that 125% of those people showed up to vote. How do you get 125% of 100% to vote? Up to 350%. That's what the numbers are in these Democratic swing states. Unreal, folks. Okay, next one. Let's do something dramatic. It's another dramatic one. We already know that the devoting system in George Soros' largest organization, which is the Tides Foundation. Listen to this. Devoting systems. And George Soros' number one foundation, Tides Foundation, TIDES, share the same office floor. Not the same office building, no, same office floor. And this is not a 30-story building. I saw a picture. There's a video of it, of a guy that goes in and asks all the questions. And it's amazing. Dominion people those people are taking down their social media, Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, all that kind of stuff. I think it was like 104 out of 250 employees have removed all that information. But anyway, they're in the same, it's not a skyscraper. They're in the same, now come on. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to, I don't even know why George Soros is that stupid to think he could pull that one off. That is mind blowing. But that's not all. Check this out. This is off the charts good. There's a gentleman by the name of Lord Malloch Brown, who's head of Smartmatic. Okay, he's head of Smartmatic. So you got D-Systems and Smartmatic tied together, right? He's the number one person at Smartmatic and number two person in charge of Tides Foundation next to George Soros. Now, I encourage you to challenge that. I need to challenge it myself. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to dig deeper, but a pretty good source. I got that off a pretty good source. I can't remember what it was. That's bombshell stuff there again. Let's keep rolling. I'm going to read an article, what I'm going to challenge you to do is there's a Tucker Carlson video on there that's really good. And I don't want to give Fox a lot of airtime lately, showing the COVID connection between COVID and how the election was rigged. Go watch that. And I've been saying that from the beginning, that this whole Biden built an entire platform on COVID and without really any plan to fix it. I mean, listen to this. One of his plans was to get plexiglass in businesses all over the world, but yet he's against oil. Folks, I've been in plastics all my life for the most part. My family owns a plastics company. It takes oil to make plexiglass, and he's against. This guy is a special kind of stupid. Anyway, scroll down in my Facebook page to November 23rd and watch that video. It's really good. Okay, the next post, and I already shared that, vaccine companies introducing the vaccine 4 days after election or a week after election, whatever. Okay. Oh man, I had this. I don't have it in front of me. Oh, here we go. So right here. Okay. I was fortunate, very blessed to have a kidney stone measuring 14 millimeters by 9, which had to be surgically removed. So my suggestion is drink lots of water. This is a commercial break brought to you by the Kidney Stone Foundation of America. Of course, I just made that up. I hope I didn't offend Kidney Stone Foundation of America if there is one. But the idea is, I got about $20,000 worth of bills for that exciting visit to the hospital. So they sent me a bill, right? Well, when they sent me a bill, it has this unique pattern to it. It has a fold. Isn't that amazing? The reason it has a fold, and it's not rocket science, is because they have to fold it to get an envelope to send me this bill in the mail, or they're not going to get paid. Well, guys, they have found in states hundreds, actually it appears now possibly more than 100,000 votes in states, maybe even more than that weren't folded. Mail-in ballots. I'm sorry, I should have said that. Mail-in ballots that were not folded. Help me here, folks. Help me. Now, unreal. That blows me away. Let's go on. That blows me away. That means the Democrats are magic. They know magic. Wow. Let's go on. This next video of DV voting systems and how they're in bed with Soros, go onto my Facebook and see that. Make sure to see that. It's a guy that actually goes to their building, tries to interview people, gets kicked out of the building. It's really a good video to see, to prove the ties in with George Soros Foundation and Dominion. It's really good. I keep saying that word. Okay, next one. This is where it gets good. I'm going to go back into a little comedy show here. Not comedy show, but just read you some serious. I mean, this is great stuff. New York Governor's Phil Murphy, and this is on my Facebook page too. If you get a chance to go see this video, put in some COVID restrictions, and some of them include dining publicly. And there's a video on my Facebook page. Go check it out. I can't remember the date, where he's busted for violating his own restrictions. The same was true with, was it the governor of California or somewhere out in California, the same thing, busted violating their own rules, their own COVID rules. This is crazy. This is absolute crazy that this stuff is happening. And anyway, I don't even know why I brought that up in this particular point, but I'm just going, what I'm doing is I'm scrolling through some of my posts so you can see what I've been, to explain what I've been talking about over this last couple months. Okay, here's another one. And of course, Facebook says it fact check it. This is great. This is my favorite. This is one of my favorite ever. Go to my Facebook page again. Michael Edward Knapp. Okay. Michael Edward Knapp. And Knapp with a K. K-N-A-P-P. Check this out. On, okay, so November 22nd at 9:14. So the other one has to be November, around the same time that I just mentioned. There's a great video. This is mind-blowing. It's fact checked. Okay. I listened to the Pennsylvania, hearing today, and it was pretty amazing that this guy was fact checked and said that all kinds of elected officials were trying to call him and he never received a phone call. So fact check is lying, folks. Let me say this. Let me go through a fact check. Let me explain fact checking, how this works. I'm not a fact checker, but let's pretend I'm a fact checker. I'm running out of water. Let's pretend I'm a fact checker. How this works is I have a belief system, right? Just naturally, we all do. I say it's a medical thing, and I want to fact check your medical information. So I pick 2 or 3 doctors. I get their medical expertise, and that becomes fact. I'm the fact checker. Those guys are my facts. If your medical advice doesn't match my medical guy's advice, yours is false. That's how this works. There is no real, true scientific stuff about fact checkers. We've already found out by this guy. This guy said all kinds of people tried to get a hold of him because he's exposing some of this election fraud. And he's saying the fact checkers have fact checked him and put all this fact check stuff. It's a lie, folks. Stop believing the fact check crap. These people are so corrupt, it blows me away. So anyway, they fact checked me, of course. Let me see if I can find the date. Scroll down here. There's a video on 9/21, and I want you to watch it, Michael Edward Knapp, where it shows, and I can't remember what states they are, it actually shows, and you can physically see it, so they can't fact check it because it's right in front of your face, where during the live, it was either Fox or CNN or one of them, during the live feed, you can see a flipping of votes from Trump to Biden, literally at the exact moment, and they try to cover it up. It is mind-blowing that you can physically see them switching the votes in literally to the count of 200,000 votes. Unreal. Okay, this next post I'm going to read that I posted was from a friend of mine who is, I'm going to bring up some stuff here. So this guy, in the church world, what you're going to find is you're going to find a lot of crazy people. You're going to find a lot of really solid biblical Christians. You're going to find a lot of mediocre places, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this guy, he doesn't have a mega church. He's not a money-driven guy, lives very simply, but he travels all over the world speaking at churches, and he has a healing ministry, and it's powerful. I've seen stuff happen. This guy is the real deal. I mean, what I have experienced, and it's what he does for a living. He travels around mostly to small churches. And His name's Monday, M-U-N-D-A-Y Martin, Monday Martin. And for months, he's been prophesying that Trump was going to get reelected. And so much so that he actually prophesied the first debate that would be disastrous for Trump. And he almost broke it down word for word as to what would happen. Now, this guy, there's a lot of people I don't trust in this whole prophetic world thing, because Scripture says when a prophet speaks something and it doesn't come to pass, he is not a representative of God, right? Well, this guy's stuff comes to pass. I mean, this guy nails it every time, and he is prophesying that Trump is going to be reelected multiple times. And he's also said before all this stuff happened that it's all going to end up in the Supreme Court. Well, I'm not exactly sure if that's exactly what he said, but go to his page, Monday, M-U-N-D-A-Y Martin, and check his stuff out. Anyway, here's the deal. He's built this entire ministry where if he doesn't prophesy something correctly and it doesn't come to pass, he's in trouble, because his whole ministry will fall apart. He can't risk prophesying something like that if it's not going to come to pass, okay? Listen to what he said. We're in a society where we taught to fear our families and friends on the holidays. We're being conditioned to believe freedom is selfish. We're being conditioned to be dictated by believing we are heroes for wearing a mask. And then he says, time to wake up. Just a good post I want to throw in there. I'm just going over some of the posts I've made explaining things. And I'm going to add to this, and this isn't necessarily about the elections, but 71 to 74% of people who got COVID said they always wore masks. So for those people out there wearing masks, I encourage you to watch the video, and I will post it again on my Facebook page that I did about the actual numbers. Okay, so I've never really talked much about Don Jr., Trump's son, but I really liking his post recently. Anyway, he commented recently that the devoting systems employees are, and I already mentioned this, scrubbing their online profiles, and it's really phenomenal how quickly. And we're going to talk about one guy, Eric Coomer. And I talked about him earlier, that got exposed. One guy caught 85 pages of his social media stuff before it got scrubbed, and it's really revealing. You can see he's Antifa. You can see all kinds of stuff about him. So let's go on. Anyway, he says. This is what he says. This is what I wanted to bring this up. And he said this. And so anyway, he commented, devoting systems, I'm going to say that again, scrubbing their online profiles. And he goes on to say, their spokesman, Michael Steele, is a former Jeb Bush advisor, assistant to Mitt Romney, and press secretary to Paul Ryan. Here's what I'm saying about this. Why am I bringing this up? Is to say that Jeb Bush and the entire family, I believe what's going to happen, his entire family is going to be exposed. Mitt Romney's going to be exposed. Paul Ryan, Paul Ryan was one of those guys when he came in office. I'm like, Paul Ryan. Same with Mitt Romney. I was a Mitt Romney fan. And man, those guys are involved in the deep state stuff. But what Don Jr. is saying is they're going to be exposed. They're part of the deep state stuff. So let's go on. The next video I posted on here is a guy. This is what I was talking about earlier. This guy named Joe Oltmann. Okay, and I may have pronounced his name wrong. He's the one that is exposing Eric Coomer, the chief security officer, strategy and security for devoting systems. What I want you to do is go to my Facebook page again, Michael Edward Knapp, and watch that video. He gives details of the relationship he has with this guy, and it's really, really powerful. Okay, a couple people that I want you to, before we go any further, we're getting into some really, 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 really good stuff. But before we do, I want to point out there's a couple places I want you to visit. Couple just good old boys that have really decided to get into this political stuff. Brad Barton, just a patriot. If you get a chance, just look up Brad Barton. He's got some really good political stuff. Let's see here. Some other ones. Definitely go back and watch the Pennsylvania hearing. It's powerful. Dig into anything Sidney Powell is doing in Linwood. Now, here's where we are. Drum roll. Election fraud. Okay. I am 14 out of 15 pages. So stick with me. I got one more page to go, or page and a half. So stick with me because this is the good stuff, okay? And I'm running out of water and I'm not going to be able to talk much longer anyway. So I'm going to go to my Facebook page and you're going to see some charts. See if I can pull them up here. And I don't know how to use this computer. I shouldn't even have used it. So I lost it. It doesn't matter. I've got it here on my computer. So on my Facebook page, I have a graphic showing Pennsylvania and I believe Georgia on election night. Now this is absolutely, positively mind-blowing, okay? You're going to see when you're watching the numbers, if you're just not paying attention, you're not going to notice it. And really no one showed it, so I don't know how we would have seen it anyway. You have to dig deeper to find these numbers. But here's what you find. You see these strange spikes in numbers where all of a sudden Trump just loses 5,500 votes or 5,600 votes or 5,400 votes. But here's what's interesting about these all of a sudden losses or I should say Biden gains, whichever way you want to look at it. But you see a negative and a positive, okay? So Biden's getting the positive and Trump's getting the negatives. Well, what's mind blowing, they're all in multiples of this. They're multiples of the same number. If you go down the list, what you see is 5,600, 5,500, 5,400, 5,800, 5,500, 5,400, 5,600. But then you also see 11,600, 11,300, 11,400, 11,500. Now, do the math. Do the math, folks. Every drop is in multiples of 5,500. So it's either 5,500 or close to that number, or double that, 1,100 or close to that number. Every single time. Every single time. It's not like 8,000 one time, 3,000 one time, 2,000 one time. It's 5,500, 5,600, 5,400, 11,500, 11,400. It always is a double multiple. It is. Let me give you a statistical probability of this. Jesus fulfilled 8 prophecies, and the statistical probability of that is one man filling the state of Texas to the depths of 2 feet, throwing a coin in there, mixing up all the coins, and having one person go in there and pick one coin that's marked with a blue mark or whatever, sitting them in blindfolded and having them find. That's 1 in 8. 1 times 10 to the 8th power, okay? Guys, for every time a vote got flipped like this to these numbers, the statistical probability is like every person in America getting hit by lightning all simultaneously. It can't happen. That's not all. Georgia has the exact same situation, but it's a different multiplication factor. It's 4,500, 4,600, 4,400, 4,300, 4,600, and then 9,000, 9,200, 9,400. It's always multiples, or 18,000. It's never 17,000. It's never 16,000. It's never 14,000. It's never 12,000. Always a multiple of 4,500-ish. It's crazy. It's a statistical anomaly. It can't happen, folks. Can't happen. I need to chug a piece of ice here because I'm out of water. Here's what's crazy. Okay, so let's look at some other stuff. This pay attention. Share this video, because this is what they found out in Pennsylvania. So there was a guy. He specializes in voter fraud, and he's a numbers guy, and he basically can go in and look at patterns and see anomalies. Anomalies, just something that doesn't happen. And they looked at Pennsylvania and they found these very, 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 very unusual anomalies, like things that are like, okay, that can't happen. The statistical probability of things not happening. Well, de-voting systems, what this man figured, and he did some mathematical compilations, I guess, and he found that a certain number of these voting machines are only allowed to calculate a certain number of votes in a certain amount of time. Okay. Well, what that means is information can't filter through these systems that quickly unless there's an outside force impacting them. Well, he's saying that there's these weird, very abnormal huge spikes that are impossible, way over impossible. Let me explain the spikes. There is a spike in Pennsylvania overnight. I believe it was overnight. I can't remember when it took place. I don't think I learned that. 604,000 votes in 90 minutes. Okay, 90 minutes. 604,000 votes, 90 minutes. Spike. Here's what's crazy. 337,000 of those, so more than half of them, happen immediately, like in a one exact moment. Folks, the system's not capable of that. You can't put that much information in the system. He's saying, because he studied the system. So, okay, so let's say it just, man, they had a bunch of people come in all at once, right? Okay. Pay attention to this. 604,000 votes in 90 minutes. Here's what's alarming. Pay attention to this. Share this like you've never shared anything before. Guess how many votes were for Trump of that 604,000 in a 90-minute time period? Guess how many of those votes? 604,000. Okay. How many of those were for Trump? 32, not 1,000, 3,200 votes. So basically, Biden got over 600,000 votes in a 90-minute dump. I don't know about you guys, but this pisses me off. This absolutely infuriates me. This is wrong. This is beyond wrong. And they know it, and they're playing it, and they're laughing at us. Check this out. That's not all. Mail-in ballots. So they allocated, Pennsylvania, I don't know if it's Pittsburgh or one of the, I don't know if it's Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. I didn't get this part, but this is the numbers. 1,820,148 ballots were mailed out. Okay. These were the ones that you send out to get back. Okay. Let me give you that number again so you can write it down. Share it on your Facebook. I don't care if you steal it from this information. They mailed out 1,820,148 ballots. Guess how many came back? 2,589,142. That's a seven. I got my numbers correct here. That's a 700,000 discrepancy. 700,000 discrepancy. So you got 700,000 incorrect, and then you've got of a 90-minute dump earlier or later or whatever in the day, you had a 90-minute dump of 604,000, all of which were for Biden. This is absolute crap. How stupid do people think we are? It's time for rebellion, folks. Actually, it's time to pray, and we'll talk about that here in a second, too. In Pennsylvania, this is amazing. There was a resurrection in Pennsylvania. There was. Jesus resurrected, and I think when Jesus resurrected, I can't remember how many 100,000, whatever, or not 100,000, but how many, I can't remember. I need to go back to the Bible and find out the number, how many people rose from the dead, graves were open, and all that kind of stuff. Well, it appears that same thing happened on voting day, because 8,021 dead people rose from the dead and decided in Pennsylvania and voted. Here's another one. 682,770 votes entered in Allegheny County in Philadelphia were not observed by any Republican. But it's against the law, folks. It's against the law to not allow a Republican. And here's what they did. They created, and I always heard about these, they call them cages or whatever, where they basically put a fence up. And they told these Republicans that they couldn't go on the other side of the fence. That's against the law. Okay? They had to be in there. I guess they felt it was a law just by having them in there, but they said the closest distance, not the furthest, was 15 feet. Like, you can't see anything 15 feet away. I need my specs to see I've got my screen blown up so high. It's crazy. This is nuts, folks. So let's go on. Here's another one. You ready? Over 22,000 mail-in ballots were returned the day they were mailed. Woo! Isn't that fun? Man, the U.S. Postal Service is working good these days. 22,000. 32,000 the day after. That's pretty stinking good for the U.S. Postal Service. Come on, people. Do we really believe this? Here's the amazing part. 20,000 were returned before they were mailed. This is crazy. And I think it's just in one area. This, by the way, was all uncovered by the name of Colonel Phil Waldron. Man, this guy was brilliant. So here's the deal. What do we do about this? I mean, really, what do we do? One of the things that I've heard a lot about, and I want to address this for a second. You're going to hear me get a little kooky for a second. You hear a lot of people for the last 5-10 years talking about conspiracy theories. And you look at what's happening both at a local level, at a national level, and really for that matter at a global level. So take it down to a small level. You got these districts that have bad voting systems. You got states that have screwed up voting systems. You got the country that's in a mess right now. But then you got Corona that's global. And you have to start asking your questions like, what's going on? I mean, really, what is going on? Now, everybody's been talking about the deep state, and they've been talking about global stuff and one world order and the Great Reset and all these things. And you have to ask yourself some questions. You have to ask yourself, who's behind all this? Is it conspiracy theory? I'm going to propose something. I was talking to a friend of mine. It's one of my favorite guys. We pray a lot together, and we talk, and we share Bible stuff. And we were talking about this idea of conspiracy theory. And we're talking about the global one world order, the reset, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to share something pretty bold here. Everybody's asking, okay, this is big. I mean, think about it. You've got candidates, or you got governors, you've got all these people that are passing these COVID rules and regulations and all this kind of stuff. And everything is crazy right now. Everything is nuts. You've got China, you got Europe that's crazy over all the COVID stuff. You got places you can't travel. We want to take a vacation. We can't go anywhere. What is happening? Now, you have to ask yourself the question, who's behind all this? Okay? You have to, because something is going on that's bigger than what we get in our minds. And then you start looking at, is it conspiracy theory? Because it's just too weird. There's too much going on. What in the world's happening? And then you start saying, okay, one of the reasons that I believe that people think conspiracy theory is the following. I don't believe there's anyone on the planet, not George Soros, not Trump, not anyone that's intelligent enough to put all this together. I mean, this, if all this ties together, like I believe it does, I mean, I see this and I'm like, man, we got coronavirus, you got the elections right at the same time on the greatest nation on the planet Earth. And it literally, Corona changed, I don't care what anybody says, changed the outcome of this election. That's really the only reason Biden even got any votes, for that matter. Well, and others people want to bring in the socialist movement. So what in God's green earth is going on? I mean, what's going on? Okay, so you have to ask yourself the question, who's behind this? So you say Biden's behind it. Biden's not intelligent enough to tie his shoes. Okay, we know that's not the case. Kamala Harris, because we know that they're going to, if Biden won, which he's not going to, they're going to take out Biden. He's going to die from COVID or something, and Kamala's going to be in his place or whatever. So we know that's going to happen if that were the case. So we know Kamala's not that intelligent either. Nancy Pelosi is right there with her. Maybe Alexander Cortez is smarter than we think. Woo, that's funny. So what's going on? I mean, really, what is going on? Because this is all very unique, very strategic, very thought out, very looks like planned almost. But then you have to ask yourself this question: okay, is China behind this? Is Russia? I don't know who else you point to. And you have to ask yourself the question, what is this? Who is behind this? And I have a theory. I'm going to tell you this. The reason I believe people say conspiracy theories, think about it, is because they can't comprehend why all this is going down. They mentally can't get it in their head why all this stuff is happening. They can't, because it's too big for our minds to comprehend. Nobody on this earth is smart enough, is brilliant enough to orchestrate such phenomenal detail, such phenomenal, even this voter fraud is really corrupt, but brilliant at the same time. There's all kinds of intricate pieces and everything from how the media is connected to how George Soros and all these pieces are just so uniquely and intricate. Who's behind it? Think about this. Think about this. I want you to think about this for a second. You go beyond logical thought for a second, because I think we need to step outside, because it takes our mind, when we think about this, we go, well, our mind can't comprehend it. But think about this. You've got governors that are passing COVID rules, for example, and are getting caught out in parties. What's the guy in California that got caught out a party with his medical advisors without mask on a party that was violating a social policy? And then the guy from New Jersey and even Cuomo and all these other people, and they're confronted and they go, oh, I just realized I violated my own policy. So you have to ask your question, how is that happening? How is it that a guy can pass a COVID restriction and doesn't even know he's violating it? Or maybe he does know and doesn't care. I don't know, but all I can think of is, guys, there is no one intelligent enough to orchestrate all these logistical pieces together. No one. I have yet to meet someone that intelligent. And ultimately, if there was that person, why are they not exposed? Who is it? I'm going to propose to you something where you may go, oh God, this guy's a kook right now. Guys, the Bible talks about a lot of end times prophecies. And it's amazing if you study statistical probabilities on end time prophecies. But the idea is there are two forces over our world. The God of the universe, under the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And Jesus Christ right now sitting on, ruling and reigning. Well, it's kind of a long story. I'll go into all the biblical tales of Jesus ruling and reigning. And then the evil one. Guys, there is no way, in my opinion, that all of this isn't somehow a direct result of just flat, pure evil in this world, orchestrated by a higher power. And I hate to give him the credit for this, but we got to acknowledge that the enemy is smart. We know biblically that there will be a global one world leader. We know that at some point there will be a one world global economic system. We know that there will be a chip where we're only going to be able to buy and sell, and it's going to be global. It's not going to be this local regional thing. We know that the Bible's the Bible has been prophetic about a zillion, 1,500 prophecies, most of which have come to pass. Unbelievably detailed prophecies that can only be described as miracle, like beyond anything anybody could comprehend. There's no way, by the way, we're going to do a study sometime, no way that any human could have written the Bible without the inspired word of God and someone that knows the end from the beginning. It's just no way. And I've got studies like that online too. But the idea is there's darkness, guys. And there's someone behind that darkness, and we know who it is. So we are at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads, folks. I believe God is giving us an opportunity. And I'm going to say this. This is not about Trump. It's not about Trump. God is choosing to use Trump just like he chose to use David and Solomon and Cyrus, for God's sake. Paul, who was Saul. Saul was like criminal of criminals. He was not the guy that the Jews would have picked to lead the people of Israel for sure. But yet God chose a man named Saul and to lead the greatest movement in the history of the earth. And God can use Trump. And I believe he has. So it's not about Trump, really. And I don't think we're all fighting for Trump. I think we're fighting for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we're fighting for our freedoms. But here's the deal. I believe what's happening right now is there is an opportunity right now with this election to expose darkness in a big, 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 big way. I believe we're going to see it all come down before Christmas, December 25th. I believe we're going to see some major revelations. I believe that even the Democrats, extreme liberals, are going to see, oh crap, this stuff is real. This isn't conspiracy theory. There's some real stuff going on. There's some real violations. There's some deep, dark people. And I believe that this is the big hurrah. We have talked about, I've heard people say there's pages and pages and pages and pages of indictments, but nobody's behind bars. We've heard about Hunter's laptop and Weiner's laptop and Hillary Clinton, all of her crap, but nobody's going behind bars. Nobody. We know the FBI is corrupt. We know the DOJ's got corruption in it, but why is nothing happening? Guys, I believe we've come to such a time as this. And I believe that there was a major victory when Amy Coney Barrett and the Supreme Court justices all came together and this all went down. I believe we are at a critical moment in our nation's history where it's time. Scripture says something that's very profound and very simple. It says, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I would forgive them of their sin and heal their land. Now, I've been a little sarcastic and I've been a little, that's just me. I'm raw. I'm just not the most polished guy on the planet when it comes to saying the right thing or doing the right thing sometimes, but I really do believe that the only way our nation will receive healing and the only way for this deep state stuff to be exposed is if the people of God will get on their knees and humble themselves and pray and seek my holy face and turn from their wicked ways. Then he would forgive them of their sin and heal their land. You know, folks, it's interesting all throughout the Bible when you see the word pray in the Hebrew and Greek, you always see, it's always, the actual words in Hebrew and Greek, it's always tied in with this idea of repentance and submission. And, you know, we look at what's going on in the court systems. We look at what's going on in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Michigan and all these places. And ultimately, guys, the big question I always ask is, what are these court systems going to say? And ultimately, we have to pray so that God can tell them what to do. That's really what it amounts to. So, with that said, we're going to close out. But my challenge is, guys, is to, this is the time, and I don't want our nation to pray any wimpy prayers anymore. This is the time where we have to get serious with God. If we really want to see a move of God in our nation, you know, I am watching these Facebook feeds where these people are talking, or the Pennsylvania Post on the YouTube, and all these posts about people's thoughts of what everybody thinks about what should happen. What is God saying about all this? What is our job to do in this situation? It's very simply, God didn't tell these people, Go humble yourselves and pray, and then do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. He just simply said, go humble yourselves and pray. Seek my holy face. Turn from your wicked ways. And then I'd forgive you of your sin and heal your land. So, folks, that's it. And that's my challenge. And my challenge also, guys, is that I believe that this is a time when we need to understand what's going on in a spiritual realm and understand that God is bigger than this. And I'm going to add this, is this may feel like your life situation too. Your life is this far out of control. And let me tell you something. I know a lot of people who've had lives totally out of control, and because they surrendered their life to Jesus Christ, that God was able to pull the pieces back together. And that's my challenge for you. Maybe your life feels like what's going on in politics right now, that maybe you right now should surrender your life to Christ and say, Jesus, I'm a sinner. I've fallen short of your glory. I am not worthy of everlasting life, and I repent, and my life is a mess, and I give my life to you, and pray in sincerity that he fix it. One of the things I've had to do, and a lot of times in my life when I've messed things up, is I've had to say, okay, God, I have realized that my life is messed up, and I look at this country right now and I say, God, this country is messed up. And I want to get in and I want to do something about it. And the reality is that I can do something about it. The best thing we can do right now is surrender ourselves to the will of God and let God do it. That's the only way this is going to be fixed. It's the only way. So my challenge is for you to think about that. Share this video as far and wide as you can possibly share it. There's a lot of detailed information in this video that I think would be helpful for people that are watching the major media outlets. So thanks for watching. God bless. Feel free to email thewellchurchfl@gmail.com. I'm not really doing any teaching right now, but I encourage you, if you do need prayer, do have any questions or that kind of stuff, thewellchurchfl@gmail.com. You can find me online on Facebook if you want to look at some of my posts. Michael Edward Knapp. I probably need to do a political page. Haven't done that yet. So thanks for watching, and God bless.